everybody. Welcome to the first edition of Out of Bounds. I'm here with Skyline alum Terrence Johnson and Arlington Bowie alum Malik Wright. Gentlemen, how's it going?
Everything's going well. Texas High School football, Friday Night Glory Sports. What's up, everybody?
How y'all doing? Welcome to Friday Night Glory's Out of Bounds. Ready? Start something special right now.
All right, let's step into the offensive players of the week. Thursday night, Amari Jones. I was sure he was going to be the offensive player of the week. 13 of 19, 199 yards, 3 TDs, 301 yards rushing, and 3 more TDs. And that did not even come close to being the offensive player of the week. What do you guys think about that?
Just crazy to score that much, not get your MVP, but we had a guy go for 10 touchdowns, which is incredible. And whenever that happens, I don't want to call it a waste of week, great performance, but which we could give out to, but 10 touchdowns is insane.
And what Malik's talking about is North Forney quarterback and University of Louisiana Monroe commit Kobe Suits, 16 of 28, 400 yards, 4 TDs, 18 carries, 193 yards, 5 TDs rushing, and then he caught a touchdown on a trick play. So 10 touchdowns total. Oh, my gosh.
Well, yeah, big win over Riley East in a whole shootout. No defense. Defense was not the forefront of that game. I'm seeing in game in this score 70-65. Great performance by Kobe. Even what gets overshadowed is Wiley East with 65 points. Still ends up taking the loss, but when the kid gets 10 touchdowns, that's tough to beat.
What about North Forney's wide receiver, Jordan Carroll, went 7 catches for 221 yards and 2 TDs versus Wiley East. They was real potent over there last week, huh?
That's crazy. And Kobe Suits, 1,063 yards on the season, 14 TDs. That's crazy. What are we, 4 weeks in? And North Forney, 4-0 coming up against Highland Park this week.
And yeah, and with 1,000 this early already, it's looking like the 3,000-yard passing season is in reach for him. With 14 already and then 30-plus touchdowns, easy.
What's crazy about this last week, and there were a bunch of blowouts, but there was a lot of offensive players with huge performances in DFW. Very few defensive, big performances. It was all offensive. We don't have time to go through all the big performances. Amari kicked it off Thursday, like I said, but
And see another big performance, Eric Izukami from Timber Creek with 3 touchdowns on the day. He was his Blake McCrary down the quarterback, just throwing it up to him anytime he's not double covered. They're giving him the ball and he's scoring. He almost took the opening kickoff that they took. He almost took that to the house, set up the touchdown after a big run for Denton High. So a lot of big offense on my side.
There's a long list. John Aguilera from North Garland, 29 of 43, 422 yards, 3 TDs. Michael Bagwell from Farmersville, 18-16, 387 yards, 4 TDs. The list goes on on the offensive side of the ball. But I think it was because, there was a bunch of mismatches, and so there was a lot of blowout. So they had a bunch of big offensive performances. Not so much on the defensive side. 3 big defensive performances.
Yeah, and out of my favorite defensive performances we saw Matt Guillard from Keller Central. Anytime you're out there getting 10-plus tackles, this kid had 16 out there with the quarterback pressure, interception, and just to be that. And he's involved in every play. You get 16 tackles, you're near or around almost every play during that game. That's a great game for any linebacker. But little defenses early in the season, defenses don't gel towards the end of the year, and athletes are going to score. So I think that's why we had such a breakout week. Athletes are usually the best players on the field, and you give them the hole and they're gonna hit it, and they're all explosive. So that's why I feel so many touchdowns being scored.
Well, not so much on my end. It was a defensive battle with the Lake Ridge Eagles and Lancaster Tigers. The final was like 24-20. Now, they had a 17-yard interception return for Lake Ridge, kind of was a turning point of their game. But they got a big play receiver, same name as you, Malik. I was butchering his name, calling him Malik and Malik. The kid went for 131 yards and 2 TDs. Then they had Chandler Rogers. He rushed for a TD and passed for a TD. He had 130 yards on the ground. So it was a pretty tight-knit game over there in Mansfield. While I was over there looking at a lot of defense, and they got the victory on the first game of district that night.
That was a huge district game, Terrence. I mean, either one of the winner of that game could win district. I mean, it's a really tough district, but let's go back to Kobe Suits. I mean, he is our offensive player of the week. North Forney quarterback Kobe Suits. I mean, 16 of 28, 400 yards passing, 4 TDs, 18 carries, 193 yards, 5 TDs rushing, and then he scored a touchdown on a reception. That's crazy.
And yeah, and Kobe with numbers like that, I think you're going to the wrong school in Louisiana. They need that type of offensive quarterback for LSU, man. So that's breakout. It's great. 10 touchdowns. Wild. That's Jonathan Gray type performance. That's big, real big. So congratulations.
Like I said, there was only like 3 big defensive performances. You got Stephen Parker from South Oak Cliff, 14 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 quarterback pressures, and 1 pass breakup. Said Michael Bryant from Samuel, 12 tackles, 2 for a loss, 1 fumble recovery, 1 blocked punt, 1 blocked field goal in a 29-22 win over Brian Adams. Then you got Matt Gerard from Keller Central, linebacker, 16 tackles, 1 sack, 1 QB pressure, 1 interception, and 1 pass deflected.
Well, that's pretty awesome for defense, especially on this side of town. You know, I represent that Oak Cliff, huh? But yeah, South Oak Cliff, they was pretty good back in the day, and you know they're about defense. They're pretty stout. So when you come up against them Golden Bears, you better bring your A game. And as for Samuel, don't too much know about Samuel, but it was a rival school of mine when I was in school at Skyline. But Brian Adams was our biggest rival out there. But that's pretty awesome for South Oak Cliff to be, you know, bringing back up the schools in DISD, because there's not that many schools that's up. So it'll be good to see them if they can make it pretty far.
And yeah, just another noticeable defensive performance I saw just from the Keller area. I see GR from Keller Central. I got to watch Keller Timber Creek put on a clinic, secondary lockdown, D-line, dominating every play. So shout out to their whole defensive front this week. And, of course, all our MVPs. Anytime you're getting 10-plus tackles, like I said, you're hustling all day. I like the linebacking core making the plays. Captain, leader of the team.
And out of those 3 performances, our Friday Night Glory DFW Defensive Player of the Week is Stephen Parker, South Oak Cliff, Texas Tech commit. That's what I'm talking about. 14 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 QB pressures, 1 pass breakup.
Great performance, Steven. They Tech's defense has been struggling throughout the years, and adding you will clearly give them a little boost that they need, man. Great performance this week.
Malik, you were at the Timber Creek game this week versus Denton, 37-7 win. Tell us what you saw.
Okay, well, I'm going to start it off on the negative side, on the Denton side. First possession, big run by Zylon Grant, broke about 3 tackles in the first drive, broke it off for a 40-plus yard touchdown. But after that, there was absolutely nothing from the Denton offense, and the Timber Creek defense, like I said earlier, shut him out after the first possession. And then you had Eric Izukuma wide receiver, still undecided. Kid is extremely underrated. Made about 4 or 5 big plays, and they had him double teamed, which double teaming him, pulling that safety off, left the lane for our MVP of that game, Blake Irvin, to torch the defense. I'm sorry, with 2 touchdowns. Quarterback Dylan McCary, this guy is fast. Pocket awareness is excellent, taking off. So really, at a few points, didn't have an interception call back that should have been it. They had a controversial drop pass, but it was a lot of undisciplined football that could have been avoided. The game could have been a lot closer than what it should have been, and I think that's what they have to keep that mindset in, because they have a monster that they're about to go against when they face Denton Ryan, a whole Arsenal who were up, won the game on their last defensive possession with the last stop, but it's you cannot afford to make any errors this weekend, or this Thursday, actually, live on ESPN2. It's a I don't want to say it's an easy call, but Ryan is tops in the state, looking like they're winning. They're my pick to win out of the 5A side, so it'll be tough for Denton.
And Denton Ryan, Malik, I mean, you've covered Denton Ryan for us more than anybody. I've covered them with you one game. I mean, they've got Spencer Sanders, they've got Gabriel Douglas, they've got Bowman Jr. I mean, Bowman Jr., he's a freshman. He not only can catch the ball, he'll put a lick on you. I mean, and Douglas, I mean, I haven't seen anybody. I mean, he runs like a deer, catches in traffic. I mean, he can do anything. And I mean, Spencer Sanders, I mean, he's a stud. I think they win state last year if he doesn't get hurt against Highland Park. What do you think about the upcoming matchup? And talk a little bit about Denton Ryan. I mean, like I said, you've seen him more than anybody.
Well, yeah, like I said, Denton Ryan's definitely one of the best team. I've seen DeSoto too, and we can get to talking about who's better, Denton Ryan, DeSoto, but Denton Ryan is the best offense I've seen this year, and their defense is so opportunistic. You fumble, they need the turnover when you at a point where they need the turnover, they get the turnover, and that's when Spencer can just put the pedal on the metal, and he's put up just like that. They're up 35-0. He can throw the ball wherever he wants. He can throw it up deep to Gabriel. Bowman can turn a screen to a 80-yard pass. Let's not forget Spencer can still run. Rutgers lockdown corner on the right side. And then their defense is just always young defense, young and hard-hitting, and they're getting better every week. So I only expect them to get better on defense, which is mighty scary for their next opponent in Denton High School.
We've got Riley Byers, South Grand Prairie intern, and Matt Davidson, who actually went to Grand Prairie and South Grand Prairie. What's up, fellas?
So, yeah, we got to see a couple games this week. Riley went with me to Red Oak, and we were over in Mansfield, Timberview to watch that game, and we really saw Jaron Russell. He really got off to a good start as quarterback. They have a lot of athletes at Timberview. Some penalties kind of set them back. I mean, God forbid the score could have been almost 70 if those penalties wouldn't have set them back. They still won 49-0. They look hot. They look like a real good team going into district play, and they look like somebody that's everybody's going to have to watch out for. I mean, they went toe-to-toe with Highland Park, and they lost at the very end by a field goal with seconds left. I mean, come on. You got to tip your hat to Timberview for going toe-to-toe with the defending state champions. So that's what I got out of that game. I don't know what you thought about it, Riley.
In the Timberview Red Oak game, Timberview was clearly the better team. They outmatched Red Oak at the beginning of the game, and we saw that at the beginning of the game, that they were a much more athletic team than Red Oak. But what really set them back, like you said, was the penalties. They lacked discipline both against Highland Park and Red Oak. And I feel like if they were a little more disciplined against Highland Park, they probably would have won that game, because they played much better than they did that game. And another bright spot on their team that I liked was their run game. They had 7 rushing touchdowns against Red Oak, which is very impressive to me. And against Highland Park, the run game looked pretty impressive too. It's really what kept them in the game because they were able to control the ball a lot against Highland Park.
And that's huge, Riley. You're right. I mean, about controlling the clock and the ball. I mean, and Matt. I mean, Highland Park, defending 5A champion. I mean, Timberview. That was I mean, they basically led the whole game, didn't they?
Yeah, they really did. I mean, they got out to a great start. Their running back, Monte Dawson, I mean, he really got off. He's a freshman, true freshman. How many times do you hear that in high school football? A true freshman on varsity starting. He got in because his starter was injured. Sneed was a little banged up, so they didn't want to take that risk. Monte Dawson got in there. He's a true buzz product. They do a great job with a lot of their training and players, getting them ready for the next level and everything. Monte Dawson, he got 2 touchdowns. I thought he should have got 3. Because one of those penalties. But they still ended up getting it in with Jyden Russell. He banged it in, the quarterback, and they got the job done. And I don't see a lot of teams getting in their way unless it's Lancaster or Waxahachie.
Coming up, y'all got Irving and Duncanville and Cedar Hill and DeSoto. Obviously, the big game is Friday, but let's talk a little bit about Irving at Duncanville. Matt, I know you're a huge Duncan Hill fan. I mean, they had a great season last year. They got a lot of players back. What do you think?
Yeah, Duncanville is definitely one of the teams to look out for. I mean, their whole team basically came back. They don't lose too much. I mean, when you got a running back that's just dominating like Keelan Elder is, and they got a rotation, so he stays fresh. I mean, that kid stays fresh. I mean, their defense is nasty. They got like 9 D1 players on defense. How many times do you hear that unless you're talking about DeSoto or Cedar Hill? Duncanville's back. They're definitely the real deal. And they might lose to DeSoto, but they're not losing to nobody else in that district.
Yeah, definitely. Duncanville has been very impressive through their first 3 games. They've beat Sam Houston, Skyline, and Plano East. And their defense is allowing 10 points per game, which is the bright spot, what I think, in their defense, which will help them in their district, which has great offensive teams like DeSoto and Cedar Hill. And like you said, I think they'll play second in this district, seeing that I don't think they're good enough yet to beat DeSoto, but I do think they're going to place very well, and they're going to be a team to watch in the playoffs.
Yeah, I just like to add that I do have DeSoto winning on Friday night. I'm going to be at that game covering it. I think DeSoto just has too much. It's their time again. Their quarterback last year, he was going to be the starter last year. You know, Sean Robinson transferred in. His mother became the basketball coach there. They actually moved to DeSoto, so he played quarterback. They won a state title. Courtney Douglas was supposed to be the quarterback, and now he's getting his time to shine. He still got in every game last year, and, he still got a couple of touchdowns. So he knows what he's doing. He's doing well. Look at his stats. He's already got 9 touchdowns. They spread the ball around to a bunch of different receivers. Everybody's fast. Everybody's getting D1 offers. I mean, it's DeSoto U for a reason. So we got to definitely look at DeSoto and say they're definitely my pick for state again.
And I agree with both you guys. It's between DeSoto and Duncanville. I mean, Matt and I talked about it before the season. Duncanville, a lot of players back. DeSoto, I mean, they're just loaded. That'll be an interesting game. I look forward to seeing it. And that, I have to say, though, Cedar Hill, I mean, they don't have that. They've lost a lot of athletes the last couple of years. But I love Coach Carlos Lynn. I think he'll get it done eventually there. Great coach.
Yeah, Carlos Lynn. I mean, you just got to tip your hat to the guy. He's an amazing guy to talk to. Even when he loses, he's still real humble to talk to. He's always there. He's a great guy in the community. He's came over there and kind of left the same kind of stuff that Coach Joey McGuire had. You know, work hard, lock in. They have their sayings over there. He left a lot of the same coaches on the coaching staff. They just lost a lot of talent. They really did. A lot of kids graduated and went to college, and they might have that coming up as freshmen and sophomores, but you just don't see it right now. And you hope the best for him. And because, we got a chance to talk with him a few times last year when he was over at Arlington Seguin, where he was doing a pretty good job, took a team to the playoffs. And, his history is Cedar Hill. He was the defensive coordinator back in 2006 when they got that title. So he knows what it tastes like to be victorious. So I know he's going to do the right job there.
Well, I definitely think Cedar Hill, they're not going to be as good as they were in years past. They didn't look as good in the one game I saw them. I saw them at Mansfield and Cedar Hill week 2. They didn't look as great as they did last year. But I definitely do think they will be a playoff team in their district. And, something about Cedar Hill, they always find ways to win. And I know I have DeSoto winning on Friday, but I wouldn't be surprised if Cedar Hill keeps it close or maybe finds a way to win that game.
Okay, yeah, and just like you guys said, I mean, I've seen DeSoto's defense in person, and they had about 3 or 4 guys who had season-ending injuries and did not get a chance at the state title, and they're back this year. That's probably the best defense I've seen, one of the best I've seen since I've been watching high school sports, period, just how fast these guys are. They're extremely fast, extremely opportunistic, and state straight.
Malik, I agree. I mean, to me, DeSoto, Saxe, and Allen are the favorites for state. I mean, Saxe is loaded. They can compete with DeSoto. But, I mean, I would not be surprised if DeSoto goes back-to-back.
Yeah, just as long as their offense can, get going, as long as Douglas is completing his passes, the defense is going to keep them in the game. I don't ever see a opportunity for a team to just put their throats on them. So that's really their key, I think, more. So the defense, they'll always be in the game, is without turnovers for sure.
Okay, yeah, Ty Peterman is doing a good job with those kids, minus Sean Robinson. I was fortunate to see him when he was at Geyer, and I knew he was most of the reason that they did win state. I don't know about this Douglas kid, but I mean, Peterman has his guys, and like you said, Malik, 3 defensive players are back this year, so it'll be interesting to see how far they get back this year. And as far as Cedar Hill, yeah, they're just a young team probably in the making. They did lose a lot, and they lost McGuire to Baylor, and like you say, defensive coordinator back in the day at Arlington Seguin, so he should be okay in a couple of years. But yeah, I'm looking to see how far DeSoto really get without Sean Robinson, because Sean Robinson is basically, to me, the reason that they got that state title. So yeah, my little connection to Cedar Hill is Charleston Rambo. He was one of the high-flying receivers. He's up at OU now, Boomer Sooner, and and Avery Davis, of course, he's at Notre Dame. So when they lost those two, I knew Cedar Hill team was about to restart and start over again, and get big and get back to glory. Like you say, lock in is your thing. So, I mean, give Carlos Lynn maybe 2 years. I say he should be back to having them Longhorns rolling again.
And Charleston Rambo's your cousin, right? I mean, he was Mr. Each week, it seemed like he had 100 yards and a touchdown or two every week. I mean, that guy was Mr. Reliable last year.
And yeah, he is Mr. Reliable, but hey, they got this one guy, Margin Hooks. He was a BYU receiver back in the day. He trains these kids just as well as the Malik kid over at Lake Ridge. I mean, their footwork is good. Route running is good. Even though Rambo has red-shirted this year just to pick up a little more weight, once he get that weight on, he's a precision route runner. So you got to credit the kids for, doing all the training in the off season. They get specialty training, something we didn't do back in the day. So I think that's the advantage of some of these kids. Because hey, last year, if I can show y'all the clip, he mossed every DeSoto DB on that field. Even though Cedar Hill lost, hey, my cousin, he went by some D1 prospects, and they let me know he's gonna be ready once he gets his weight up.
Well, we can go on to Terrence and Lake Ridge.
Yeah, back to that Lake Ridge game. Last week, like I was saying, Chandler Rogers, he had 130 yards rushing on the ground. Now, Lake Ridge, mind you, have 2 quarterbacks. Jason Beam was the quarterback. Last year, he passed for almost 3,000 yards, but he didn't really do too much in this game. It seems like they went with like a little wildcat formation with Rogers and throwing to Malik. Big plays, good defense on both sides of the ball. They had an interception return for a TD. They had 2 big receiving plays at the end of the third quarter. LD Fair caught a 64-yarder to cap off the end of the third quarter, and what really capped it off was Malik's 62-yard touchdown on their homecoming night. So that was a big win for them, open up district. Not only that, they beat the defending district champs in the Lancaster Tigers, so that was a statement game on opening night of district.
And Lancaster, year in and year out, that is a good team.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more with Chris Gilbert over there. Lancaster really hadn't been the powerhouse when they went to state that one year. They've been in the playoffs here around, but they got some athletes over there. I believe their quarterback was Leonardo Johnson, I believe. But the kid is a baseball player, too. He throws rockets over there. But I don't know what Lancaster will have to do. It's probably play a little more defense. I mean, they had a tight game. They had a lot of penalties too, so a little undisciplined on the football field there. But I think you will see Lancaster making another run here pretty soon, deep in the playoffs, maybe get back to at least the third round like they did last year.
And the thing is, Terrence, is Lancaster doesn't have to win district to make a deep run in the playoffs with the district they're in.
Yeah, that is true. They don't really have to win the district. I mean, once they get in, I mean, they can do enough damage to take them a little deep. I mean, they did have a good rushing attack on the ground with Devontae Lacey. He had 210 yards and 1 TD, but you couldn't tell because they didn't get the win. But, I mean, between him and the quarterback, those are two like the main guys on that Tigers offense there.
Yeah, I've been out in the Denton area the last few years, but would y'all still say Mansfield's the best area for college or high school football? Was it 2-3 years back? I think 2015, I want to say, we had 3 teams that at least made it to state quarters.
Yep.
That's still the best area out there.
I agree.
Yeah, I can agree with you on that. Mansfield has been on a rise. It's a growing city at that. I mean, they had Kennedy Brooks. He was like one of the main dudes that another OU commit from out there that left. But I think Lake Ridge looked pretty impressive. My first time seeing Lake Ridge play, I only really seen Mansfield play, but there's some well-coached kids out in the Mansfield, and it's a growing area, so they will be around for a while.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Terrence on that. Mansfield is definitely on the rise. I've had a chance to cover 3 Mansfield schools, and all 3 have really, truly impressed me, and I believe that all 3 of those schools are going to make a run in the playoffs in Timberview, Mansfield, and Lake Ridge. Lake Ridge usually finds a way, even though they're only 6 years as a program. They've been very impressive in the postseason, so has Mansfield over the years. And Timberview seems to be looking like they're going to make a mark in the postseason this year with impressive wins against Red Oak and Everman, both winning by over 30 points. So I'm looking forward to seeing Mansfield schools in the playoffs this year.
And I want to ask all 3 of you guys, what about Summit? I mean, there's talent at Summit too.
Haven't really did my homework on Summit yet. You know, I'm barely new to that area of Mansfield, kind of living out there here and there. But I know Lake Ridge and regular Mansfield for sure. But I have heard Summit name making a little noise, so they may be the top 3 schools out there. So, you know, hopefully we'll see them around in the playoff as well. I get to learn a little more about Mansfield Summit.
And yeah, just that North Texas, Dallas, DeSoto, all the way to from DeSoto to Martin and everything in between is the best area in high school sports, in my opinion. So definitely with Martin and South and Cedar Hill and Bowie and Lamar, all in that same little small area, it's a great hotbed.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Malik on that one. There's a couple districts in the DFW area that have really taken over high school football and have made deep runs in the state. And all the last 4 years, a team from this area has came out winning state in 6A. So yeah, I definitely agree with this area being the best area for Texas high school football, and that translates to the next level too, with talent from this area going to big name schools like LSU and TCU and Oklahoma and Kennedy Brooks.
But yeah, the talent's coming. Just recently, number 1 overall pick Miles Garrett from Arlington, Texas.
Okay, Terrence, and this Thursday, Bertner at Lake Highlands. Big rivalry. We got over to Lake Highlands, you and I, before the season started, talked to a few of the kids over there. What do you see in that game?
Yeah, Randy, we did have the pleasure of going out to Lake Highlands on their media day, and we talked to Tremaine Bell, the preseason defensive MVP, weak side defensive end. Well, they lost to Wiley last week, 10-7. They gave up 217 yards on the ground and 2 interceptions. So they did have a pretty good game. I mean, they're standing at 2-1 right now. Like you say, Thursday night they're going to play a Richardson-Berkner team that beat Garland last week in big fashion, 35-16. Now they have a quarterback, Nickel McLemore. He went 19 for 30, 208 yards passing, 2 TDs. They have a linebacker in Fanez Youssef. He's a linebacker, mind you, but he had 12 carries for 96 yards on the ground and 2 TDs. He's like a stud. So I guess he's a both-way player. I didn't see that when I was doing my research on him. I thought he was just a defender, but I think something that they will have is probably more speed than Lake Highlands. I mean, Lake Highlands is a good group of kids, but it seems like they couldn't rally or maybe get the offensive going because they didn't really have any passing yards or anything.
So you're going with Berkner versus Lake Highlands this week.
Well, yeah, Randy, I mean, the Wildcats giving up 217 yards on the ground. I mean, it seemed like it was a defensive battle game, 10-7. They just couldn't get their offense going. So, on the other hand, if Richardson Berkner can put up plays like that from quarterback to receiver to running back, of course, their offense is going to be a little more potent than putting up 10 points against a Wildcat defense. And if the Wildcats can't move the ball, like I say, they have a two-way player in Fahez. I hope I'm saying that right. Youssef. He's a linebacker. He had 112 tackles last year, but he also had almost 100 yards rushing last week in that 35-16 win over Garland. So I'm thinking they may have a little bit more firepower on the offensive side of the ball that probably beat the Achilles heels for Lake Highlands.
The thing you got to remember is Fulcher got hurt last week, and I don't know what his status is. And with him out of the lineup, that's huge for Lake Highlands. But if he's playing, that makes a big difference.
Exactly. I mean, I didn't know the kid was out, so that could explain that 10-7 score. I mean, like I say, the defense seemed to hold them pretty stout to 10 points. That says something big, but, still giving up over 200 yards rushing. This Berkner team, they can run the ball pretty well and kind of at will when they want to.
Well, we know it's going to be it's a huge rivalry game. It can go either way. I mean, out of all the games we've talked about tonight, that may be the most even game. What do you think?
Well, yeah, they probably are rivals because this is district play, and I mean, Berkner is 1-2 right now. Lake Highlands 2-1. Of course, is non-conference wins and losses that they both have. So yeah, you're right. This could be, the turning point for the Wildcats to get back. I mean, they share the same backyard, but they will be playing on mutual ground. So, crowd has to travel. So it's going to be a factor on both sides of the ball. So it should be a good one for, their first district matchup.
It's actually both their home stadium, but I guess Lake Highlands is the home team this weekend.
But yeah, I mean, it is both of their backyards, and yeah, it should be a nice game. I mean, it could be a defensive battle if the Wildcats play like they did on that 10-7 loss. But like I say, giving up 200 yards on a 10-7 loss, and you got a potent offense right here that rushed for over 200 yards, passed for over 200, and can play well on the defense side of the ball. So it'll be interesting, but, it's whoever put their pants on the right way that day and come to play. So the Wildcats, they do stand a chance.
And Terrence, now you're going to be at the Flower Mound South Lake Carroll game. I mean, TJ McDaniel, goodness, 2 games this year he's had 200 yards in the first half. And then you got Cade Bell. I mean, he tore it up last year. He's tearing it up this year. You got a new quarterback, just a junior, Bowers. I don't see any way Flower Mound's going to beat South Lake Carroll. What do you think?
Well, Randy, them Dragons, after taking that loss to Arlington, I think they had a wake-up call when they played Rockwall last week, 52-38. And you're right, quarterback Will Bowers, he was 10 for 14, passing 170 yards, tossed 4 TDs. Not only that, he had 143 yards on the ground rushing and a TD. And then, of course, big TJ McDaniel carried that rock like all-star. He's a big guy. He went for over 200 yards and 2 TDs. And then up top, the Cade Bell had 103 yards with 1 TD. So, I mean, the Dragons are trying to get back from that loss against Arlington. I mean, they had a pretty good game last week. So it may be a big blowout against Flower Mound. They're at home. They're 1-0 at home. The Hal Watson, their time of possession is good. Over 24 minutes with the ball. That's darn near the half of the game there. So, I mean, I don't even look for the Dragons to even struggle in this game going up against a Flower Mound team that's actually lost last week to Timber Creek 22-7, and they're like 1-2. So we'll see how that plays out on Friday night.
All right. Well, then let's go over the rest of the big games that we don't have anybody going to. Well, we actually do have somebody going to Bishop Dunn, Bishop Lynch, but Kenny Matthews, he had a death in the family, so he couldn't join us tonight. But we've got in TAPS a rematch of the state championship in Division I. Bishop Dunn at Bishop Lynch. What do y'all think, fellas?
Bishop Lynch and Bishop Dunn. Are those the 2 privates?
Yes, sir.
The Eagles, I mean, well, they're the Falcons, rather. I know they had a good basketball team, but haven't too much followed Bishop Dunn in a while. But I remember those names ringing in my head. Bishop Lynch was always a powerhouse when I was in high school. That should be interesting for a Taps night, to see those kids go at it. Could be a back and forth game, probably high scoring, over and under, maybe 45, maybe.
Well, here's the deal. Last year, Bishop Lynch beat them in regular season, and Bishop Dunn came back and beat them in the state title. I mean, So it's a rivalry game. It was a rivalry game when I was in high school in the 70s and 80s. Rivalry game when Terrence was there. It's always been a rivalry game. Anything can happen in a rivalry game.
Yeah, and just to come back and win in the championship like that is impressive in itself. Getting they really won in the end, even though you both split. So Lynch is going to be looking to come for heads. That state title loss, I'm sure, is fresh in their minds still, so it should be a good game.
Okay, gentlemen, right now we got the best 0-3 team in the state, Jesuit, going against Capel, who put up a fight against Allen, who's 2-1. So you got 0-3 Jesuit. They played both 6A state champions. They played DeSoto, tooth and nail. They played Lake Travis, tooth and nail. Lost to Plano East. But, I mean, that's a tough first 3-game schedule going against Capel, who's 2-1. And like I said, they played Allen tooth and nail. What do y'all got to say about that?
Yeah, Jesuit's been on the rise here since they moved up to the powerhouses, and they've been playing some lights out ball, so they're up there with the big dogs now. So, I mean, I'm looking for Jesuit to make some noise and probably make a name for themselves here.
Yeah, and just to go back off what y'all said, that's great scheduling, in my opinion. You schedule non-district games like that to get into playoff games. There's a lot of teams who are going to go into the playoffs, and in round 3 or 4, they're not going to have faced a team as good as DeSoto. They're not going to know what that's like, and that's going to smack them in the face to start the game off. They've had 2 shots at the 2 state champions, and to keep it close, that's great scheduling on their part, which will give them more success in district. They've seen their biggest flaws, so looking forward to Jesuits come up and seeing how they finish this year.
Yeah, I just like what Jesuits got going on. I mean, you see the way they play all these good teams real close. You just got to tip your hat to him. Also, the best rusher ever, his son plays for them, Mr. E.J. Smith, Emmett Smith's son. So, I mean, you got to want to watch what greatness his son looks like, and you just got to want to see what they got going on over there.
Yeah, like Malik was saying with Jesuit scheduling, that's great on their part because even though they didn't come away with the win, they're 0-3 right now. It definitely prepared them for their district schedule and going into playoffs because I still fully expect them to make a playoff run and be a team that comes out of that district. I actually expect them to win this week against Capel, even though I expect them to get their first win of the year, and I think they'll have a good season this year, and that the non-district schedule help them a lot.
So hold on. All 4 of y'all think Jesuit's going to beat Capel, who was nip and tuck with Allen last week. Am I right or am I wrong?
I would think you would be correct, though. Allen's okay, but yeah, Jesuit's on the rise, man. Allen had it for a while, and now you got more schools, more power than him. We got a Sweetness son in the backfield, so you got to have them Cowboys, man. You got to represent.
Just to even come close to beating Allen is always, of course, a feat. Only been done a few times in a year, but I think that 0-4 leaves an extreme sour taste in their mouth that I don't think Jesuit wants. So I think they want it more. 0-4, they're not out of it by any stretch. District just began, but that's a hole to climb out of. It's a mental hole that it'll put them in. So I think they just off their one, they'll go out and get it.
Now, I'm not going to say that Jesuit's going to win that game. I mean, I think that Capel can actually get it done. That's why I had to come back and say this real quick. I said, Jesuit, they look good and all that, but they're not going to beat Capel. Let's not get it twisted here. Capel's too good. I don't know if you guys know about Capel, but I do.
I have to agree with Matt because Mr. Brady McBride is a playmaker, and he comes from Texas Tech lineage. His uncle, his dad. I mean, Brady McBride, I can't see. I have a fraternity brother whose son plays on Jesuit, and then friends with Brady McBride's dad. I mean, Brady McBride's a playmaker, and I can't see Jesuit beating Capel. I agree with you. What do you think, Riley?
I think this is definitely a must-win game, and I think Jesuit has what it takes to pull out a win. And I think, like Malik said, getting an 0-4 hole is definitely a mental hole that they don't want to get in. So I do believe that Jesuit will find a way to win this week.
Well, yeah, exactly like that. Brady makes some big plays this weekend. You're 0-4, like I said, it's just a tough hole to come out of, and just stay in the game, compete. It's just tough. Going 0-4 is not where you want to be this early in the year, especially with this many powerhouses out. You're going to end up with that first round game. You're already playing quarterfinal football in the first round.
I just want to throw something in there too. I know they in a hold 0-4, but mind you, DeSoto beat them 41-36. Now we talking about DeSoto, the defending state champions. I don't know how powerful Jesuit is, but I mean they're right there. They lost the second game to Plano East 41-30, and then they kind of got away from them in their last game against Lake Travis 64-45. But that first game against DeSoto, that probably was a hype game, beginning of the season. So I look for this 0-4, just like Malik said, that may be like a beginning of the season for them with that play in district. Cause I mean, you can't lose all your games in high school football now.
Okay, you do realize Jesuit went 0-4 last year and then ran the table. And Brady McBride is a winner. I don't know how much y'all have seen him play. He is a winner.
I just want to say I make the same point that we made for DeSoto and Jesuit. I mean, we can play devil's advocate and say that they gave Allen every bit that they could handle being Capel. So, yeah, I got Capel still winning this game regardless.
Yeah, well, and I am not too familiar with Jesuit, but let's get some defense from you guys this weekend that you're not going to win any games giving up 35+. So let's get some of that in, give you guys a good chance.
Agree. All right, Malik. Keller Fossil Ridge at Keller Timber Creek. Talk to me.
Yeah, well, I had the chance of watching Timber Creek play last week. Like I've said, Eric Izukuma, one of the most underrated receivers in the state of Texas. This guy was Odell Beckham type, where wherever he was on the field, he can score a touchdown from anywhere on the field. And with their defense, their D-line and linebacking core is with tops. They made it extremely easy for their just basic cover 2 set. Great corners, great defense all around. So I got Timber Creek in that one.
I got Timber Creek winning that game as well. And Eric Izukama, I mean, he's been getting multiple D1 looks right now. This kid's a stud. I got a chance to see him play last year. He's a true Buzz product as well. Got to see him play against Denton last year, 5A against 6A. Let me tell you, Keller Timber Creek, they're explosive. They're going to be popping off the boards, and they will make the playoffs, and they will go deep. They did pretty well last year, but they're going to do better this year.
Yeah, running back Blake Irvin, sophomore. And with Eric, you have to double team Eric, which makes it really easy when you leave the box, don't have multiple men in the box for Blake and his O-line to just go to work. And he had 100+ yards rushing in the game. Emmanuel Wilson sealed the game with the interception in about the third quarter off a tip pass. So just opportunistic defense and great, and a playmaker, a huge playmaker, really is going to help them this year.
But both teams, I mean, you're talking about crosstown rivals, both 4-0. I mean, this is a huge game.
Yeah, and it's a huge game just for the Keller area in general. If I remember a few years back, probably my junior year, sophomore year of high school, Arlington Bowie dominated Keller or Fossil Ridge about 40-0. I think their whole district got swept out of the playoffs that first round, and so to see them see the progress they've made in the last few years is in the area period is great. But no, that adds another area to the Dallas area.
Okay, another big game. Lake Ridge and Summit, 10-5A.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go with Lake Ridge in that one. Summit is a good football program, but they're the weak link out of that Mansfield area with Lake Ridge and Timberview and Mansfield High and all those schools. So I got a competitive matchup. Mansfield football, great, but I got Lake Ridge.
Yeah, Malik, I gotta agree with you on that. Lake Ridge. I mean, are you sure you're the Malik that played last week? Cause it's a Malik knows that's the receiver for Lake Ridge. He's a big play guy, man. Like I say, his footwork is so on point. But yeah, Lake Ridge. I mean, they look pretty promising. I don't know too much about Mansfield because they lost Kennedy Brooks. That was their workhorse. But look for them Eagles to go pretty deep in this round here and probably go 2-0 in district this week against Summit.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to pick against Lake Ridge when they beat a team like Lancaster. I mean, who's going to pick against them? I don't care how good a team is that's playing against Lake Ridge right now. I'm picking Lake Ridge, whoever they play against.
Another big game, Mansfield Legacy at Lancaster. Legacy 3-1. Lancaster's only 2-2, but I mean they lost to Ryan, undefeated, probably the favorite to win 5A state championship, and Lake Ridge 3-1, who lost to 6A Geyer. I mean, this is a big ball game.
Yeah, and I had the opportunity to see that Lancaster versus Ryan game. Game was actually tied going into halftime, and they just kind of lost their gas. But Lancaster's running game is excellent. Excellent quarterback play too. So if they can stay disciplined, I remember they had a lot of interference penalties, a lot of penalties in that first game, and a lot of turnovers. So cut those down and get a win this week.
Yeah, they did have a lot of penalties last week as well. Like you say, that ground game is pretty good with Devontae Lacey, over 200 yards rushing and 1 TD last week. So if Lancaster can get rid of the penalties and play discipline, Chris Gilbert's going to be a happy man after tomorrow night.
I mean, it's going to be real hard to pick against Lancaster. They always have good teams. This year, they lost a little bit from last year, but I still see them being a dominant team. I just do. I mean, you're not going to tell me that Coach Gilbert's not going to get his team ready. They stay focused, it says a lot, and we like seeing the product that they put out on the field. I'll tell you that.
All right, I agree with them. I have Lancaster winning this one. Even though they are 2-2, they did look very impressive in both of their losses, and they look very good in both of their wins. And I had a chance to watch them this week, and they're just way too much athleticism on both sides of the ball, and I think they're going to pull out a win.
Okay, and we got Nick Harris now. Nick, talk to us a little bit about Heath's 24-14 win over Tyler Lee last week.
Heath looked really good last week. They were dominating on the defensive end really early. Chance Amy, a Houston commit quarterback for Tyler Lee, he can really make plays on his feet and through the air. Big dual threat quarterback, and Heath was able to contain him very well. They were flushing him out of the pocket all night. And Tyler Lee, they're a second half team. All of their victories this year have come in the second half. And Heath was really able to come out in the second half and dominate like they did in the first and come out with a double-digit victory.
And now let's move on to Rockwall. I mean, playing John Tyler. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. John Tyler has kind of had Rockwall's number the last few years. Am I right?
They have had their number on the offensive end the past couple of years. Last year was the first year that they were in the same district, and Rockwall came away with a win in the last second. Both of the teams had over 50 points, but it was shocking to see Rockwall be able to contain John Tyler's offense. That's not something not only Rockwall hasn't been able to do the past couple of years, but any team in 6A. And it was really big for Rockwall to come out on the defensive end because they had given up 49 points week 1, 48 points in week 2, and then 56 points in week 3. So to only give up 7 in their first district game, that was the only negative point to their game so far this season, and they're going to look really good coming into week 5.
I agree with you, Nick. I mean, Rockwall's had some problems on the defensive end, but they didn't this last week. Did you see any adjustments? What did you see that made the difference this week?
As far as adjustments, it was just being able to shut down the passing game and the running game through the middle. The linebacking core led by Blake Barone and Jacob Rather, it's key for them to get and stop that run before they can get 10, 15 yards. And they were able to do that and force them to throw the ball. And then when they were throwing the ball, they got guys in the secondary like Alston Orji, Anthony Orji, and Abbas Bell, and they were able to contain it on the secondary side and just fluster JT all night. So if they can keep that up this week against the Heath offense, that it's not really sure what's going to happen this week with the Rockwall Heath offense. Their quarterback may or may not be down. So it's curious to see how the Rockwall defense is going to fare, and if it wasn't just a fluke last week, and see if they can back it up here in week 5.
What do you see this week between Rockwall and Heath? Inter-city rivalry? I mean, what's your take on it?
Rockwall and Rockwall Heath, they've both had solid programs the past couple of years, and no matter if one's more successful than the other or the other's lacking in some part of the game or not, both of them, whenever they come to play, they always come and give the fans a great show. So you can definitely expect a great show this year again. Expecting a sellout crowd plus the extra stands at Wilkerson Sanders Memorial Stadium in Rockwall, and you're going to expect a heck of a show from both sides. And honestly, with Heath, they're 3-1 coming into this game. Their only loss was against West Mesquite, and they lost their quarterback in the first quarter of that game. Really couldn't figure out on the offensive end until about the fourth quarter of that one. And then Rockwall was coming in 2-2, and their 2 losses have been against 2 of the best teams in the area in Rowlett and South Lake Carroll. So these are 2 teams primed for a breakout year, primed for deep playoff runs, and we're definitely going to see what both of them are made of coming here into week 5 in this critical matchup in District 11 6A, as they're both 1-0, and the winner of this game is going to be in great position to make the playoffs.
Yeah, Nick, from what I can see, I mean, Rockwall Heath's much improved, and then Rockwall, there's a good amount of hype about them, with all the D1 players that they got. A lot of people kind of expected them to come out better than what they have been. What do you take away from the first few games with both of those teams?
The thing about Rockwall is their offense has been there. Jacob Clark, their quarterback transfer from Kansas, 6'5", 230. He's definitely got the size, and he's only a junior. And he's been able to facilitate that offense really well, as they lost their leading passer, leading rusher, and leading receiver this year. But they have come out. Their offense hasn't missed a beat. And like I said before, their biggest lack so far this season has been their defense. But as we saw last week, they were able to control a John Tyler offense that is always potent and able to shove points all the way down the opponent's throats. So their 2 losses have definitely been because of their defense and lack thereof. But coming into week 5, after only giving up 7 points last week, we should see how they're going to fare for the rest of the season this week. And then as far as the Rockwall Heath side, being able to produce on offense if starting quarterback Garrett Cody is not in is going to be a huge factor. Garrett Cody got knocked out in the first quarter last week against Tyler Lee, and running back Tyrus Fort jumped in as kind of a wildcat position, and he was able to work that offense really well, work in Arkansas commit Tanner McAllister in the offense, and they came out with that 24-14 win. So being able to overcome adversity is going to be a big thing for both teams coming in to week 5 and then for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I just look over there and I kind of think they both look like playoff teams now. So you gotta think that they both might be able to sneak in. What do you think that would do for your area over there? Would your kind of your Rockwall and the city of Heath, you'd kind of be happy about that, right? If both teams made the playoffs.
Rockwall and Heath, they're both probably, in my opinion, favorites to make the playoffs out of 11 6A. You got Mesquite Horn, who has just been incredibly dominant in their first few weeks. They can make the playoffs in 11 6A. And then as far as that 4th spot, it's kind of a toss-up. I mean, you got Longview, you got Tyler Lee, you got John Tyler, Mesquite, North Mesquite. Any of those teams could sneak in and grab that 4th spot. But if Rockwall Heath can stay overcoming adversity and not lose 3-4 in a row like they did last year, then we could really see them making the playoffs. But as far as what it would do for the community around here, Rockwall and Rockwall Heath both making the playoffs, definitely. It's huge for any community for one team to make the playoffs, much less 2.
And I agree with you, Nick. Horn. I mean, they're kind of a monster this year. I mean, they've had a really good start to the season. And you got what's his name, the receiver, Wren. What is his name?
Maurice Wren.
Maurice Wren. Yeah, I mean, the kid's a stud.
Yeah, Maurice Wren is definitely a key facilitator of that offense. He actually just decommitted from Arkansas last week. He was expected to go to Arkansas, so his recruitment's wide open, and he's opening up a lot of eyes, and not only District 11 6A, but around the state as well. So it's curious to see not only where he's going to end up next year, but also how he's going to help that Horn offense once the stretch comes for 11 6A.
Last but not least, North Forney with this week's offensive MVP, Kobe Suits, going against the 5A state champions, Highland Park, and it's a district matchup in 15 5A.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go with North Forney tonight, or Friday night actually. They have 3 rushers over 200 yards already. One of them closing in on, or 2 rushers. One of them closing in on 300. Just the ground game. Control the clock. Keep the ball in your hand and get the upset.
Riley, you saw Highland Park. What do you think?
I think North Forney will pull out a win this week. You know, Highland Park is a very impressive team, but I think there's way too much offensive firepower from North Forney. I think they'll continue from last week and find a way to win this week. And I think it'll be a close game. You know, Highland Park always finds a way to stay in games. You saw in Timberview they were down early, and they found a way to win that game. I think they'll hang around, but I think North Forney will pull the game out.
Yeah, I got Highland Park winning this game. They showed a lot with that big blowout win last week, and they had a resilient comeback win against Mansfield Timberview. I understand that North Forney really dominated and did that, but they haven't played against a team like Highland Park. Okay, it's time to start focusing on the tougher opponents. Highland Park's defending state champion. Come on now, they didn't lose that much. Their team still looked good against Timberview. I'm picking them to win this game.
Speaking of that, how was it watching Jerry's son last week? Looking like Cowboy. How did it feel? How was it watching Jerry's grandson last week? We got a future Cowboy.
I mean, seeing the helicopter come in and land is one thing, and then getting to meet Stephen Jones' father is pretty awesome. You know, John Stephen Jones, a great family. They show themselves very well in the community, and we've always got along real good with them. You know, Friday Night Glory and the Jones, they are great people, and we just love what they're doing, and we love what Highland Park's got going on. I mean, they got a great quarterback. He's smart. You know, he's got the best training. He's focused. He's everything that he needs to be for Highland Park. I got them going pretty deep this year in the playoffs.
Yeah, I noticed John Stevens, your boy over there, man. You kind of went Jason Garrett there on me for a minute. I thought that was Coach JG talking with that speech you just gave over there with the Jones family there.
Yeah, it's one thing to have a lot of money, but you know it's so easy to turn the cheek and not put money into the community, and they do. They put it back in the community. They do good things. You know, they got the contract with Frisco ISD for the Stars, so that's pretty cool because the kids always got a nice place to play, and I think it works out for everybody. And then just on top of what Highland Park's got going on with John Stephen Jones, I mean, he's smart. You know, he's not very tall, so he has to really work. You know, he's not very tall. He's my height. I'm 5'11". That's what he is. So, I mean, he's going to have to work for everything he gets.
All right. Well, I mean, that's this upcoming week, last week's games. Let's give a shout out to the offensive MVP, Kobe Suits, and the defensive MVP, South Oak Cliff defensive end, Stephen Parker. And here's what they've won. Presented by Gridiron Tech and Shed Helmet. Next week, we'll be back, and we'll see who was right and who was wrong on their predictions. I'm sure mine are all right, but we'll see next week. For Terrence Johnson, Malik Wright, Matthew Davidson, and Riley Byers, and Nick Harris, I'm Randy Edwards, and thanks to Taylor Mayer and Beverly Taylor producing this thing. We'll see y'all next week.